Arsenal have drawn 0-0 with Nottingham Forest away at the City Ground, but due to other results, have actually extended their lead over our rivals to 7 points. We're going to look back at the game, all the incidents, and how our rivals managed to fare so that we can actually extend our lead. We're then going to take a look at our big game tomorrow in the Champions League as we head off to the San Siro to face Inter Milan. Last year we faced them and it was unfortunately came off with a loss. Can we get the win this year? What does Mikel need to do? And will we see rotation due to the priority of the Premier League with Man United on the horizon this weekend? Joining me to discuss all of this is the excellent Alex Forder from Forder on Football. All of this to come on episode 38 of Red Lines and Half Spaces. Welcome to episode 38 of Red Lines Half Spaces. Wow, the Premier League just keeps on delivering results after results, and this weekend is no exception. So we need someone here to review it. Unfortunately, Joe is away with his work. We hope you're well, Joe. But in his place, we have got the excellent Alex Forder from Forder on Football, the Folks podcast, the Canon podcast, you name it. The generation of front covers for the latte firm, which has caused much debate. That's all his fault. Blame him. But how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Thank you for the very warm welcome. I appreciate that. I don't think I've ever been called the excellent Alex Forder, but
why not? You do so much. You do so much, my friend. We have to make sure we give you your credit.
Yeah. What's the phrase about the person that does many and the master of none? I think I'm somewhat like that.
You go with that one. Okay.
I'm like our Mikel Marino at this point.
Mikel Marino's done all right lately, I have to say.
Oh, yeah, to be fair, I'll take that.
But how you been? How are you feeling this season? Obviously, we haven't talked for a while. We do a show usually, but because of Christmas and all this, it's been a kind of we haven't done so much. But right now, how are you feeling as an Arsenal fan? Because obviously, it's an interesting time, isn't it? I think for Arsenal fans, myself, I feel like we're doing well, but we always have this nervousness in the back of our minds because we haven't done it for so long. And we're going up against a juggernaut who've just spent nearly 100 million on players, again in a window. No one ever talks about that, but we can talk about it in a minute. But how are you feeling, Alex, as we head into this kind of home straight, but we're getting into, we're down to, 17 games now, aren't we? There's not many games coming.
I've realised I am a spoilt child when it comes to Arsenal, Yem. I should, and I know I should be over the moon with being, 7 points clear, and we're top of the Champions League as well. We're in the semi-finals of a cup and seem to have like half a foot in the door of that, I'll call it, not a whole foot in the door. But we're doing brilliantly on all fronts, and I want more. I'm still not satisfied. And I think it probably has something to do with that kind of that PTSD of yesteryears and the fact that, we're both of an age where we remember the titles, and it's that horrible feeling of, I've seen us top at Christmas and not win it. I've seen us in this position and give away points. And it seems each time we've got an opportunity to pull away, we just do something lacking, and I think it's probably me worrying a little bit more about it than I should, to be honest. I'm just spoilt.
Well, it's interesting. Thierry Henry, I don't know if you've had a look today, but Thierry Henry just recently did Monday Night Football. And he was kind of saying this is, Arsenal, we should be proud as Arsenal fans because we're in a very good position. We're 7 points ahead, which is a very big lead. Relatively, it is. But I think again, to your point, we do have a slight PTSD, don't we, with, we should be further ahead because we know what's coming and what's happened. I think as well, the Premier League this year is very tough. Wayne, our good friend from the Can You Believe It podcast and Latte Firm, said it is really hard to win away at a Premier League game. And it's proving so, isn't it, at the moment for a lot of teams? I mean, we'll talk about the league results this weekend, but generally the Premier League is much more competitive. I don't think the argument about the league is weaker is valid. I think the league is much stronger, and I think the league overall is much stronger in terms of from where it was before. 1 to 6 used to be really strong, and the rest wouldn't be as strong. I think 1 to 16 are very strong now. But I think also, as it's proven, 17 to 20 are equally as strong on their day. I think Wolves and Burnley, unfortunately, you can tell they're not going to make it. But the Burnley result this weekend, as well as they drew with Liverpool, shows that you can't take anything for granted in the Premier League anymore, can you, Alex?
No, especially, as you say, away games. The away table is laughable because everyone's so close. Teams are just unable to pick up points when they're traveling away from home. And we've seen it. We've seen it with ourselves and getting, 1 point when we go away. And at this point, if you're looking at this current season, a point away from home isn't anything to be sniffed at. I had a quick look today, actually, about teams and the amount of points that they have at this current point in the season. And it's really interesting. I think from what I've seen, only 2 times have teams had a bigger point gap between first and second at this current point on the 19th of January in a season. And, last season, Liverpool 50, Arsenal 44. So even at that point, when we thought, are we really in it? And we were all starting to look towards the Champions League, that was a 6-point gap there. So I think with the shoe on the other foot, maybe it's because we're inside it. We've got a different optics from what we should. I think if the shoe was on the other foot and we were in second place, we might be thinking, oh, I don't think we can catch up now. I think we've missed the opportunities. And unfortunately, Arsenal are pulling away. It's just the way it is. It's funny, isn't it? Football, it's all about optics. It's all about narratives.
Oh, absolutely. So let's dive into our game this weekend as we travel to the City Ground and played Forest. Alex, I want to start with some stats. 0-0, unfortunately, a 0-0 draw, but the stats tell a really interesting story, and I want to get your opinion on some of the talking points. So 40% for Nottingham Forest, 60% for Arsenal. Expected goals, 0.34 for Nottingham Forest, 2.10 for Arsenal. Total shots, 15 for Arsenal, 6 for Nottingham Forest. Big chances, 4 created and 0 for Nottingham Forest. Alex, the story to me says we were the dominant team, but we couldn't take our chances. We created the chances. I'd say 4 chances is not really what we should expect, given that we had 15 shots on goal. Mm-hmm. But we had enough to win this game. And the line I come out with here is a point is fine. As you said, it's hard to win in the Premier League. But we wanted so much more because of where Forest sit, which is 17th. How do you feel? Do you feel the same, or is it kind of you've had a look at it in hindsight and thought it's actually a good point?
I went on multiple swings on this one, I'll be honest with you, because directly after the game, I was furious. I won't lie. I was absolutely furious about the performance, about the choice of lineup, which I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more in a little bit. But and then it changed with the Villa result, because there was so much kind of emphasis on City and the points that City were on. And I was thinking, well, with Villa win against Everton, that's going to change the whole view of this game as well. So at the full-time whistle, I was quite upset, I'll be honest. And it just felt like the same old story. We know we're resolute in defense. We know how. Oh, I just felt that there were so many things that we've seen time and time again. And at some point, we're either going to turn a corner and we'll play a bit more free-flowing football. And I am hoping and praying that that's going to happen. Or it comes back to that thing of like, how sustainable is this? Can we keep getting away with missing these chances again and again and again? And I'm sure we will talk about City and the way that they take their chances in a little bit, because there's some interesting kind of lines about that I'll get into.
Yeah, so let's talk about the lineup, because you just mentioned at the start that you were concerned about the lineup. So the lineup was Ben White, David Raya in goal, no complaints there, especially with Kepa Arrizabalaga not really covering himself in glory in the midweek, but he wasn't going to start this Premier League game. Ben White at right back, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber. How did you feel about that defence? Because obviously that's the one that started against Chelsea, did pretty well. Ben White looking very good, but we do know that Ben White has got fitness issues with playing more than a couple of games a week, and it looks like we're going to be doing that. Miles Lewis-Skelly not starting because obviously I think there is concerns about his ability against pace, which Callum Hudson-Odoi has in spades. But that defensive lineup was actually concerning in terms of that Miles Lewis-Skelly is starting to lose ground in terms of actually starting a game. But
yeah,
how did you feel looking at the defense? Did you think, look, we should be, this is the best we can do? Or is it that we, given that Timber in the game didn't look great, did he? He didn't have his best game going forward. I mean, defensively, I don't think there's any ever issues with him. I don't think we have concerns. But offensively, that left-hand side is a problem and continues to be a problem, doesn't it? Especially when Timber was inverting and actually getting in the way of a lot of attacks, wasn't he?
Oh, 100%. And it's a hard one to make out, actually, in terms of the defense itself, because we're in a position where, although we have 100,000 defenders at the club, we have very few to choose out of. So it is almost like a choice out of necessity. And I don't think, when Timber first came to the club, if anyone said to you, oh, Yeamin Timber will be playing at left back, no one would have had any qualms about that at all. Lest we forget, his debut in the Community Shield was playing as a left back against City, in which he got man of the match performance, didn't he? Prior to that injury, and he looked, absolutely fantastic. However, I'm usually someone that I don't really like playing players out of their kind of natural position, and it's one of those things where you could either look at it and say, well, maybe we needed to be a bit more creative, or maybe you just put Miles in and have the faith in him, especially against a team that is so low down in the pecking order of the Premier League teams right now. But we have got these Champions League games coming up, and depending your viewpoint, you could argue that maybe we can actually rest some players against Inter, like a Ben White, and moving you in Timber back to right back in that game. But it'd be interesting to see what you think about the Champions League game later on, and because I know we're going to have a little segment about that, and whether you think that we should be resting players in that game, or we should be going full tilt, essentially, because I wonder if Arteta has got, one eye on the Champions League and looking at it as a possibility to get some squad rotation. But right now in defence, I was happy with it. On paper, that's a fantastic back four, and Kepa is, a brilliant reserve.
The only concern I have is obviously that Miles Lewis-Skelly now is not trusted. Last year he would have been trusted. I think, unfortunately, if you look at the Liverpool game, which was a disappointment, when he came on, he was torn to shreds by Frimpong every time. He looks like he's struggling a little bit. Why do you think that is, Alex? I mean, and also it's clear that Arteta does not trust him against pacey players. And, obviously, as we said, Callum Hudson-Odoi is a very pacey player. So what has happened to him? Is it that he had a very high of highs last season. He was always starting. He was fit and he looked like he could take on pace. He was not dribble pass for most of the season. But this year, and I know he's had less game time, but he definitely does look like he's struggling against, pace-based players.
Oh, that's such a hard thing to unpick. Thanks, Yen. Make it nice and easy on my
That's why I got you here.
Welcome back. I mean, it's really hard. I think if you looked at it in isolation and you said, okay, we've got this player. How old is Miles at the moment? Is he 18?
19, I think he's
so
about
19. I mean, still very young. If you said, okay, we've got a 19-year-old who is currently behind Yeamin Timber at left back, Hincapié, who has gone as an invincible, and Calafiori, who is an Italian international, and obviously with his performance this season, I think he's a vital component to this team. And if you looked at it there, you go, well, okay, I'm not surprised. And if you looked at his development as well, you'd predict that a player would have peaks and troughs. You know, we know that development isn't lineal. We don't expect him to progress. And I think sometimes we compare these players to like a Bukayo Saka, whose time at the club has been, I mean, it's unbelievable. He is a
Mm.
complete anomaly. You don't get players who come on the scene at, in their teenage years that play in one position, which isn't the natural position. So Bukayo played as a left back, as we all know, then went through and went as a left winger, as a right winger, and now he's like world class. Miles is doing a similar thing where really his best position as a midfielder, that's his natural position. That's where he's done most of his learning, and he's kind of honing his craft. And then he suddenly played as a left back. And I mean, who would have thought he would be playing against a player in Vinicius Jr. at the new camp, who is kind of in the running for a Ballon d'Or, and put him under lock and key. And, he goes against City, scores a goal against them, does the big celebration, has his huge moment. He has had some of the biggest moments you could possibly think of in an entire span of a career. Some players will aspire to have those things and never, ever get anywhere near that point. Whereas Miles has done it his debut season when he's been thrown in and not kind of readied for it. So I think maybe it's just one of those things where I think at the beginning of the season, it was a case of take him out of the limelight a little bit, try a different profile with Ricardo Calafiori, who took the ball by the horns and just, took us to another level and to another way of using that left-hand side. And for Miles, it's a case of now he's got to build that confidence up. He's also got to build the manager's confidence up in him. And I'm sure at some point he will have another opportunity. Mikel won't kind of shut that door and close the door to him. That path will be open again soon, I have no doubt. And I expect him to do very well when that moment arises. He's just at this current time where we are at the top of the Premier League and every point matters. Mikel's got to trust him. And I completely understand having Urian Timber as someone that you turn to and go, well, if I need a really steady performance right now, I think Timber's someone that I can trust.
No, fair enough. Let's look at the midfield. So we've got Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, and then Martin Odegaard. I want to come back to the discussion about Martin Odegaard and Arsenal's creativity in general. Just we'll sidebar that for the moment. But obviously that's our strongest midfield on paper. Then up front, you've got Madueke, Martinelli, and Victor Gyökeres. Now, obviously, the question of we rotated, but it looked wholly unbalanced, didn't it? The front line looked ridiculously unbalanced. Madueke looked okay in fits and spurts. Martinelli looked okay, but Victor Gyökeres, we know, is struggling for form. But Forest were very easily shackled him without that kind of threat from out wide. And Martinelli and Madueke tend to play on the outside rather than the inside, and it looked like a very unbalanced lineup. How did you view that front three, Alex?
Oh, you've hit the nail on the head, mate. It's I looked at it and I thought, you're playing three runners, essentially. There has to be some kind of balance where you could argue Jesus coming in, a more kind of ball to feet type of player, someone that can link play a little bit better, would work, far more fluently with a Madueke and a Martinelli. Or you go with a Trossard instead of Martinelli. So you've got that link play with Gyökeres. He seems to have built up an understanding with Gyökeres. That's when we seem to get the best out of him. And at the same time, on the right-hand side, a Bukayo Saka comes in, and then I just think at this point, one of the very, very few criticisms I have of Mikel Arteta is his ability to balance the attack. And, I can't come down like a ton of bricks. He's done incredibly well. And here I am sat on my nice new chair I got for Christmas, criticizing the gaffer. But I think we can all see there is a problem. But I will give a caveat to that, because over this current period, compared to the corresponding fixtures we had last season, our XG difference is 8.9. It's not like worlds apart. So we had 22.9 and this season
Well,
14.
so, so,
Um,
so
so
Alex, let's talk about that now since you've
yeah,
introduced the question. You mentioned the XG from last season, but we know last season we were ridiculously disjointed. It feels like we still haven't solved that attacking cohesiveness. It looks very disjointed, and what we're getting is we're I always say it, we are low volume, big chance creators.
yes,
We will hold the ball for a long time, but we will not create chances of note. And in big games this season, that's caused problems because if I look at the Liverpool game, it wasn't enough, especially second half. We looked really, but that could be lethargy. This game as well, we had a lot of shots on goal, but were they big chances? We had 4 chances created. So now the question becomes, what is the problem? Yes, we've talked about the imbalance in the front line, but I also have to put something on the captain, who is supposed to be the fulcrum of the creativity. And unfortunately, I think at this moment, Martin Ødegaard is struggling. And I think the
Mm.
struggle has come with the change in our approach play. Martin Ødegaard used to be the one who started the attack from deep when we had 2 pure holding midfielders. We don't have that
yeah,
anymore. We have Martin Zubimendi who gets the ball off the back 4 and tries to move it on. But then you've got Martin Ødegaard doing the same thing. And it's kind of, well, why do you need to do that? He should be further up the field. But I also have the kind of thought that Martin Ødegaard lately has been kind of dropping out of those spaces he used to occupy, where he used to be in those very tight spaces and used to play the most effective. And I wonder if the injuries have caused him some kind of concern around, I can't handle the rough and tumble that comes with that kind of please. You know,
yeah.
both of them, Martin Ødegaard and Bukayo Saka, get absolutely leathered in most games. We've seen it for 2 years. But Martin Ødegaard's had a lot of injuries in terms of physically. He's been, 2 shoulder injuries, the ankle injury, maybe psychologically. And I'm not saying this is the reason that he's worried about, I'm going to get injured again and that's it. Because I can understand that as a human being, you get these kind of injuries and you go, oh God, what
Yeah.
happens if I go in again? But it's causing a problem for our attack because if you look at it, on the basis of output, and I'm saying purely on output, Eberechi Eze has delivered more on the output than Martin Ødegaard. The facts don't lie. Goals, assists, movement. Eze looked better in moments. Now, Martin Ødegaard is a fine player. There is no doubt about that. But I think the way he's going about it, coming too deep and not engaging that backline or creating enough, I think is causing us a problem because creativity-wise, it's always the same to me. It's either hit Saka and hope or go to the right hand side constantly with that same kind of ball. It is too robotic, too predictable, and we lack invention. How do you look? I know that's a lot to unpack, Alex. I had my little rant there because I feel that I'm seeing it in too many games this season, especially against low to mid block teams, that we are getting this horseshoe effect where we can't penetrate. We lack the players to create that invention. And it was telling that Martin Ødegaard was pulled off after 70 minutes. So where do you stand on this? Is Martin Ødegaard needs to redefine himself a little bit more because he's been used to being this fulcrum, and that's not the case anymore. You've got technically sound players now in that midfield area he used to occupy. Where do you stand up on that, and also our creativity concerns, Alex?
Oh, gosh, you're giving me a hard time tonight, mate. Odegaard, I think it's really interesting. I haven't thought about the confidence side of things and the mental side of the game to put yourself into those central spaces. And we've always had problems with central progression. It's something on the Canon podcast, myself, George, Alex, Rohan, James, when he's come on there, have all spoken about. And I felt that this season we'd started to turn a corner with that. We'd started to see something different. And I think the injection of Eze into that kind of more traditional 10 role had been really good for us. And at times, at the beginning of the season, when Martin Odegaard he came in and then he came out and he came in and then he came out, he was doing okey-dokey at that point. But one thing that remained true of him was that he was being much more forward with his passes. He was seemingly looking to go between the lines for Gyökeres. So it's quite similar to he does for Haaland on an international level. And I thought, maybe he's started to, understand a different way of playing just by looking at Eze. And when someone is doing that, someone plays in your position and you're having to sit on the sidelines and watch, you naturally go, right, what can I do to have a better effect on the game than them? Because that is the bar now. We've got a player who's scored a hat-trick against Spurs in a North London derby. That bar is high. So what can I do? And we've seen Martin Odegaard in the past. Like you mentioned it, we had that season where he scored more outfield goals than and open play goals than anyone else in the league. And you think, well, if he can do that from that position, then why are we not using him in that way? And I do think there's an element of Mikel Arteta trying to do this PSG fluid 3 with a lot of rotations, a lot of control, and trying to go at it at that manner. But it has its positives and it has its negatives. And I think when we're watching the game, we are always aware of, our frailties, are the things that we're not as strong at. And obviously the central progression is one of those. The way that we attack is one of those. And we quite often go back to our real strong hand, which is the defensive side. And unfortunately, sometimes when you try to go gung-ho, that is something that will happen. You'll concede more. And we've seen that recently. We saw against Chelsea. In terms of just attacking itself, because I know you've kind of given me that as well, so thanks for that. I do feel that, so this season, kind of, I'll try to back it up with some stats here. So over the past 4 seasons, I believe on average, our transition game has gone from, on average, we had a 2.1 for 3 seasons in a row. We had a 1.9 last season, and we're up to an average of 4 this season. So what I mean by transitions is the ability to get the ball from our box upfield to a shooting opportunity within 15 seconds. So that's the kind of the stat line. So we are getting at least one more transition every game than last season. And I think to look at that, when we're watching it, we probably don't feel that way. We feel like we're quite ponderous. We feel like we're recycling and not taking the risky pass. But in actual fact, it seems like Mikel Arteta is saying to the players, get the ball up quickly. Let's see if we can, with our turnovers, even in our own box, can we get the ball up there into a good opportunity? And maybe we need to start looking at how we implement Eze back into the team to help with that. And I think one of the players who's really good at being decisive in those attacking areas is Leandro Trossard. And I think he's been probably, on balance, I would say our best attacker this season. You might argue, Bukayo Saka, but I just think
Trossard's been much better than
what he gives us. And a lot of that is this kind of killer mentality, I think when he's left out, he's furious. And when he comes on, he always tries to put his mark on the game. And he started bringing that in with his starts as well. So I think he's such an important component to this team now.
I also think that Bukayo Saka's form has not been amazing this season. Last season, obviously, at this point, before his injury, he was on form. I think obviously that's affecting our play. But I think as well, we do need to look at that creativity aspect. I know Mikel's overriding thought is to control the game. But will the lack of creativity cause us a problem, do you think, going for, we've got some, games coming up that we think, look, they're gonna low block us. If you look, we'll talk about the Man United game in a second, but these kind of games you look at and you think, have we got the ability to score enough goals? Obviously we're still on goal difference, the best team in the league, but that's because of our defensive structure. But we look towards a set piece quite often. Hand of Arsenal, who's one of the big accounts on socials, was saying that the look seems to be to go, to wait get a set piece to open us up.
Yep.
And then look at that. And I tend to agree, because it doesn't look great when we can't create enough. And I know we come up against low blocks, but surely with the quality that we have, we should be doing better than this, shouldn't we?
It's so hard. We should be. but maybe that's me thinking about the good old days, watching, in 98 and 99, watching Ian Wright, Dennis Bergkamp, Anelka going on, and then having the joys of Canu, Wilt, or Thierry Henry. We've been blessed at this club with free flowing attacking football. So maybe for us, it's part of that. But at the same time, look at City, and we all kind of they're hailed as the best attacking team in the country. A goal difference is not much difference, and they've got a striker what's he on now? Almost 20 goals this season.
Yeah, he hasn't scored for a while though, has he?
Yeah. So when you're looking and you're going, well, that's the absolute elite. That's where we want to get to, and really, we're not that far off. I think if some players start taking their chances, because Martinelli and Madueke are, they're not that clinical. Gyökeres, as much as we all want him to be, he hasn't been clinical. I don't think Havertz or Jesus will ever be clinical. But Bukayo Saka seems to have a downturn in form in terms of his output, whether that's goals or assists. So we've got we've got a team that, unfortunately, none of them are that way inclined, but all of them are more than capable of chipping in with the goals and getting us to the promised land. Because at the end of the day, we know it's a team game, and it's about the accumulation of goals, not having one player. So we got to stick with the method, because right now it's doing us well, whether we're enjoying it every second or not. We've got to keep in mind we are still 7 points ahead, and it seems like that's a pretty good indicator to success.
So then let's just talk about the incidents. There wasn't that many that we could talk about, unfortunately. We will talk about the penalty incident. But in terms of goal chances, there was obviously the Martinelli miss, which just, he got in at the far post and just missed. It came off the post.
Yeah.
The Victor Gyökeres, where he broke free, but unfortunately, Murillo is a very good defender. And, what could he did his best, but his control was never going to be the greatest, and he couldn't control it that far. Mikel Merino, obviously, having the shot, which Sells saved. Generally, we created some decent chances, but as you said, Alex, we couldn't take them. If we look at it, it's a case of we are struggling for finishing at the moment, whether it's our striker, who obviously is low on chances, but also is struggling in front of just generally in the play. Great that he got a goal in the midweek, but I still have concerns about his general viability as a top level striker. But then we also get to the incident where it came out of the blue, where Ola Aina moved his hand towards the ball. There was nothing else about it. He moved his hand towards the ball. But then VAR said it was a natural movement. To me, I'm sorry, I don't see it. I think everyone else, most people apart from the FA and the PGMOL, have acknowledged that looks like a penalty to me, because he moved his hand they say it was in a natural position. That was not a natural position. He moved his hand towards the ball. This should have been a penalty for me. What do you make of it, Alex?
Well, I've seen in the past where we've had people blasting a shot and the player's got no chance to ever get out of the way of it, and then a penalty is given. Whereas we've got a player here who's essentially juggling with the ball. I don't know. I just looked at it at first time. Instant is a guaranteed penalty. That's a penalty, and then they check it, and it wasn't given. And I thought, have I actually missed something? I must have missed something, because I was adamant at the time.
So they say it rolled onto his shoulder and then rolled onto his arm. It didn't look like that. But it looked like he moved his arm after the shoulder movement. That's the thing, that he moved his arm towards the ball.
But regardless, isn't that just kind of almost like bending the rules to suit your narrative anyway?
Yeah,
because regardless, you're handling the ball, you're inside the box, you're keeping it in play. It's an advantage to you. I just don't understand how it cannot be given. And do you know what's really nice is that you've brought this up now, rather than to kind of lead in the pod in with this, because regardless, I just felt that we need to start doing more in these kind of crunch games. We understood what had happened with City, and we had, that should have given us an impetus to go and dominate this game, and it did seem quite flat at the time. So I'm glad you've brought it up now. But
well, because
I
again,
mean,
it's an incident, but it's not the major one because
yeah,
we should have been well ahead of this, and we had the chances, we just didn't take them again. And I think a lot of players were off form. It wasn't great. Again, I just feel like this, as you said, Alex, this is an opportunity missed. This Liverpool was exactly the same. We went into it with great optimism, and we came out with, what we, on the balance, we are better off. And we'll talk about the Premier League results in a second.
mhm.
But it just felt like we should have been doing more, especially against a team that was 17th. But let's look at those
Yeah.
other results. So we are ahead. We have gained a point. We've extended our lead by a point, and that's because Man City lost to Man United at Old Trafford in Michael Carrick's first game. Now, we play Man United next. We're not going to do a preview, but I think we have to talk about it because it is interesting. But City were absolutely destroyed by United, I think. They had a lot of the ball. I think City had a lot of the ball, but again, were turned on the counter. Were absolutely torn apart by Man United. They were more efficient in the attack, weren't they?
I couldn't believe it. I predicted a better performance from Man United. I didn't predict that. At times they played City off the park. I there was one little passage of play which was on the left-hand side, and there was quite quick movement with the ball. They played it out, and Ryan Cherky kind of just stopped and threw his hands up in the air to say, what do we do? How do we deal with that? And I thought, you're meant to be at the club that's doing it to them. And I thought that was it was nice. It was nice to see that with City. It was nice to see that, because how many years have we had to put up with Pep ball and them just playing this tiki-taka, it just flying around the park and no one can get close to them. And they've moved to this more transitional based game, and it was so nice to say, I think, some of those principles that you used to employ are being used against you. It's almost like the dark arts of
But
yeah, go for it.
To your point, obviously they are a very transitional side. They also are very weak in defense because obviously Josko Guardiola and Ruben Diaz are out. Obviously, Daddy Pep has cried to Daddy and has got his way with two signings. Mark Gahey joins today, and obviously we'll go straight into that. But again, you look at it; they're not defensively that sound. Even Mark Gahey, adding him in, will not necessarily solve every problem, will they? Because they're too open, aren't they? Rodri is not the same player at the moment. He's still struggling for getting back to that level of fitness where he was. He looks like he's a player who, Jurrien Timber came back from an ACL, but he was much younger at that point. I think Rodri's ACL has affected him more than, it would do. And it's expected when you've got an ACL. Look what's happened to Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah.
Is it the case that Man United were that much better than City, or City were that much worse?
Oh,
I asked this because it's going to lead to my next question, which is pretty obvious, is that we play United next. So are you a little bit worried now?
I should preempt your question and just say, it was just City. We're going to trounce United. I think, to be fair, I'm going to sit on the fence now and say it's half and half. But it can't be understated, a new manager bounce. We are usually the team that gets the new manager. Like, how many times do we play a team and suddenly they got a new manager put in place, or suddenly they get players back from suspension, or, they've just made a signing? There's always us. So it was quite nice to see City have to deal with that for a change. But I do think there were a lot of system changes with United, and they did play on the front foot. They played with conviction. At the same time, that I think the mentality from the City players looked like, I was going to be a walk in the park. I was this lot. They're not that good. We can do this. And City right now, what's that? Is that 3 draws in a row now, or three games without winning? I think
3 games without winning. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're not in the richest vein of form themselves, and it was almost like a perfect storm, I think, for United at that point. And who'd have thought? You play some players in their natural positions, as we mentioned earlier, and they look a little bit better. So that Bruno guy could probably play as a 10.
Oh, really? I thought he was an 8. But then or even a 6 for some managers. Is a 6. But that obviously is a concern because obviously they have started to, they've got a very big result. They'll be on a high.
Mm.
Also, as well, I do think tiredness was a factor. You could see it in our game as well. We played the League Cup. City had played that as well. They'd given a lot, and they
Yep.
looked a little bit leggy, which is natural. You play a game more than your opposition. You're expected to. And that's one of my concerns this week. We're not going to do a deep dive preview, but obviously we play United this weekend in the Premier League in a big game. And United, as I've kept saying, will always turn up. This game, they will turn up. They turn up in the big games.
Yep.
We have Inter Milan this week, and let's talk about that and the balance between them. We go to the San Siro, top of the Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question here is, Alex, would you rotate the squad given that Man United, to me, seems the higher priority? Because, and just to set the scene for everyone who's listening, we are top by 3 points. We have got Inter Milan and Kairat Almaty at home as our last game. If we win our last game, we will still be top because unless Bayern Munich, and it's entirely possible, could score a hatful of goals. They're playing Union Saint-Gilloise next, and then I think their last game is I can't remember. I think it's someone else. It's someone low down as well, but the likelihood is we will be top 2, which is the position that you want to occupy to ensure that you've got the best kind of draws when it comes to the round, to the round of 16. What would you do, Alex, in this position? Would you say, look, because for me, I would say that the United game at the moment is the bigger priority. Inter Milan is a massive game, and on the face of it, you say we should be, showing our best foot forward in against one of the big rivals. But the fact is that tiredness is looking very rife in the squad at the moment. We are down to the threadbare at the back. I will also say up front, some of the players look leggy.
Mm.
Personally, I would rotate a little bit for this game to ensure that the United game is our priority, because against Kairat Almaty, with all due respect to Kairat Almaty, we should be absolutely battering them off the park.
Yep.
How do you approach this, Alex, for you?
I completely agreed. However, little caveat, I don't think Mikel will. I have a feeling he will look at this game as another statement game, and he will want to wrap up this kind of part of the Champions League, this kind of phase, by cementing us as top, by beating.
But is there a need to? Is there a need to, though?
And
We don't
I don't
need
think
it.
there is. I really feel that if it was me and I was in charge, then God help us all. But because there'd be some really interesting tactics going on. But I would throw caution to the wind, and I would play a Miles Lewis-Skelly in this Inter game. I would play Kepa. I would give some of the other players a rest. I would look at players like Zubimendi and Rice and say, right, how can we, get you out of the team? Can we play a Norgard in? Can we play some of the youngsters that we've seen in the Champions League, to be fair?
But Norgard hasn't been a bad player. I think.
No, I think he's been fantastic, actually.
I think Norgard is really underrated. And I think every time he's played, he's looked decent. And I don't know why Mikel does not trust him more often, because I see games where I think you need a Norgard on, because just to solidify yourself and not have these issues. If some of the games this season where we've drawn, you think, why did we not bring Norgard on? It smacks of either he doesn't trust the player or he has concerns about fitness, for example, because I don't think his ability is in question, because when I see him, he looks really good.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Like I would have thought this season that, like, you look at Eberechieze and the amount of minutes, and they're obviously managing his minutes. And then I look at Zubimendi and think, this league is far more demanding than La Liga, and especially in the role that he's playing, because a lot of people imagined him to kind of come in as this Jorginho type player, this metronome that will just kind of sit there and just keep the ball ticking over.
Yeah.
At times, not only is he going forward, but at times we're playing with Declan Rice and Zubimendi going forward, and I wouldn't be surprised if he, gets quite a few goal involvements this season, because the manner of which he's playing is, it's all action at this point. And you think, surely we need to play Norgard and manage his minutes a little bit better. But it seems that Arteta really, really wants that midfield three of Declan Rice, Zubimendi and Odegaard to play as many matches and as many minutes as possible, regardless of kind of what the future may hold for those three. And he seems much more willing to change the front three. He seems willing to even change the goalkeeper at this point a little bit more. But that midfield three, that seems to be his, what he really wants. And it seems to be in his mold. And I can understand to a point because a lot of the profiles are so different. Like Eze is so different to an Odegaard, as is an Ethan Waneri. Norgard isn't the same kind of player as Zubimendi. So, where did you get a Declan Rice from? Maybe a Miles Lewis-Skelly, but he's not going to give you the same kind of ball retention as him. So I guess at the moment, Arteta's going to play pretty strong for this one, mate.
So let's play the advocate game that you just mentioned. You're the Arsenal manager. What are you doing tomorrow? How much you rotate? What would be your team?
Oh, let me just double check, the Arsenal injuries currently, because I know
because that changes by the day, doesn't it?
Players, and people go, no, Forder, they're not available. You can't play them. So we have got missing right now. We've got Piero Hincapié, Ricardo Calafiori.
He might make it back for United. Might.
Yeah, he's being assessed, isn't he? And then Max Dowman's missing, but I believe, I could be wrong, everyone else is fit.
Yeah, Mosquera's back in the squad now. He hasn't played, though.
So is it too soon to bring him back in? I mean, I would probably, for this, I would play Kepa. I would play...
Really? You'd play Kepa? David Raya is not as tired. Again...
No, true. However, I would argue... not just a physical fatigue, but the mental fatigue of playing top level, and maybe just give him one more game out just for a little while. And I don't think Kepa's done anything particularly horrendous.
I think the two against Chelsea, I have to call him out on.
I mean, they're not absolute howlers.
They're not howlers, but the level expected, he's still a top level goalkeeper in terms of.
And I'm just not worried about this game, Yem. So I'm just going full sale changes. I would probably play. Oh, do you put Ben White as right back with his
playing 3 games in a week?
Yeah, I think I would take him out. I'd probably put Jurgen Timber out on the right. I would go with a centre-back pairing of Mosquera and Salmon. I'm just going for it,
Salmon, wow.
Why not? Let's give him a Champions League debut.
That's a big, against Inter, against Marcus Thuram.
Yes, I have full faith in that boy. Come on.
I do as well, but
that's
a big call to make.
Hale End is now
he's 16 years old. He's going up against a fully grown, big lump of a man.
I mean, to be honest with you, I would probably play Gabriel and Saliba, but for this, for the sake of this, I'm going full hog. Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back. I think you bring him back in. I'm not ready to bring any other player in at left back, and I think with Timber going to right back, you give Ben White some rest, and we've got to give him an opportunity at some point, and he has been really, really good. With that being said, I think if you're playing Miles out on the left, I think then you have to play Martinelli out on the left. That gives him the ability to keep the width while Miles steps into midfield. A midfield three of if I am. And I'll be honest, I would probably play Gabriel and Saliba as centre-back. Let Mosquera come into the team. I don't think he'd be ready to start. So midfield three of Norgard, Rice. Oh, yeah, Rice and Eze. I bring him back in. And then I would play Bukayo Saka out on the right and then take him off probably at half-time and let Noni play, just so we got a balance with Madueke. Because Madueke and Martinelli, I just don't like them on both wings. And then I would play Gyökeres up front again. And I know some people would go, no, don't play him, don't do it. However, I feel that for Martinelli and Gyökeres, where you're going to see them at their best is when teams open it up. And although Inter are not the most open team in the world, I do feel that
Italian teams don't open up.
I know, but I would argue just in the Champions League, that is where he should have his bread and butter. And at that point, it might be a case that when we do play Man United, you can bring Kai Havertz back in, because I think that game might suit him.
You don't think Jesus
more.
will start? He gave the press conference today, so that leads you to believe that he may start.
This is who I want, though, yeah.
I know.
It's not about Mikel, it's about me.
Fair enough. No, that's fair enough. I mean, I think there's a good amount of rotation in what you said, and I would agree with you on a lot of stuff. I think he may rotate, and I think Jesus will certainly start tomorrow. I think the question will be: does Saka start? Does Trossard start? It's those starters and how much we're willing to risk before United, because again, United is more important in the context of it. Really, I mean, we've qualified. It's now just about closing it out and making sure that we're top two, which we should be. So it'll be interesting to see what he does tomorrow. I think he's going to go pretty strong because Mikel won't he? He can't help himself.
Yeah.
What do you think then? Your prediction? Do you think we'll win this one? Because last season we went there and we lost, but that was all the weakened squad, wasn't it? This time we're going there with a reasonably strong squad, and we should be in a better position, shouldn't we, to make a game of it?
We should be. They'll make it difficult for us.
Yeah.
I think whether you play a strong team, a weak team, it's going to be similar, because we are very, we're defensively resolute. We won't concede too many chances, I don't think, in the Champions League particularly as well. We understand the occasion, and that's something that's been really evident. We've grown in the Champions League. If you remember when Arteta first took over and we first went back into the Champions League, we looked lost at times. We looked like children. And now we look like an experienced team. So I think we'll hold our own very well, as will Inter. They always do really well in the Champions League, don't they?
I mean, if you look at them, they're sixth in the table. They've got 12 points in their league. They're going really well. I think they're top now, aren't they?
I believe so.
They're top. So they're no slouches. I don't think they're as good as what they were previously. At their peak, they were a European force to be reckoned with, and I think now it's a little bit more. But you can't take it lightly, can you? That this is going to be an easy game at all. This is going to be a tough game. Inter are defensively resolute on the attack. They've got weapons like Thuram. They've still got Kanyanoglu. All of these players who are very dangerous. So I think he'll still be reasonably strong. I hope we do get some rotation in, because I think, as I said, the Man United game to me is more priority for me, because United will be fresh. They've had a whole week. Carrick has had a whole week to impart his ideas, so it'll be a different slate. And United will definitely turn up. I don't think any Arsenal fan will go into that game thinking, "Oh, we're going to batter United. United are rubbish." They're not. They're a good team, and they'll be very up for this game at the weekend. And we need to be as similarly up for it. And we're going away to Italy, so we're going to be back tomorrow morning, I believe. No, as in Wednesday morning, which is not ideal, because again, that limits your training time. We don't really have training, as Mikel says. We have recovery. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be hard. Liverpool showed as well. Liverpool went away to Inter and barely got a 1-0. Came through very. So again, is it really necessary for the win? I don't think so. I think Mikel will want the win, but well, let's see what happens tomorrow, and I'll enjoy the win if it happens, but I'm just praying for a rotation. It's
such a shame that this fixture isn't switched with the other Champions League fixture. I mean, it could have been far worse. We could have been playing them, almost in China. Like, it's that far, because they are right on the edge.
Yeah, Kai Almaty are very far. The thing is if you look at it, we've had a good schedule, actually, in terms of where, our travel. But it's just the fixture sandwiching, between them.
And that's the thing. I think we're the first team in history to have this many away games in this shorter period, because is it 4?
Do you see me? Hold on. Do you see Mikel complain? Pep cried a little bit and got £100 million worth. What did Mikel say?
I know.
Just bring it on.
Can I just bring up something, Yeamin? I just want to question with you, because I know you're always leading the pod, so I'm going to flip it the other way around. In what sport do you have a champion, a multi-time champion that is then under investigation for cheating in multiple facets of their sport, and then they still are not the villains? Because I feel that this season we've turned into the villains again. It's like we've got our Arsenal back. Everyone's complaining about us. Everyone's saying anything about us. But I can't think of another example in sport, Yem. Like, when are they going to be vilified, City? When are people going to look at them instead of
Well,
us?
the fact is that our fan base does not help us. I think a lot of our fan base, I think some fan TV channels have propagated the image of certain Arsenal players, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's how it is, and that's caused, obviously, and the banter that goes on socials. That's part and parcel of the game. So that's led to this kind of hatred of Arsenal. It is natural, as well. But the success of Arsenal now has also led to this increasing of this vilification.
Yeah.
But the fact is that we know when they signed Semenyo and Gahey, no one really say anything because it's just been accepted. The problem is that there are legal cases going on. We don't know when this is actually going to be resolved, one way or the other. I'd prefer it was resolved now, because then at least you can say, look, they've been cleared or they've been charged. They should be, they whatever it is. Look, again, we don't know. It's taken so long, and there's been no reason for it, and obviously it's because of the legal malaise that happens. City have got an army of lawyers, and that's how they've got through, a lot of their things. Even with the Premier League and the APT rules, they absolutely brought, the full brunt of, their legal force, and that's the difference. The Premier League has a finite amount of money. The backers of City do not. They have unlimited pools of money. It is what it is. We've accepted it as the norm, because there will always be a star against City in any achievement that they get. You can't not but put that star against them. That's the facts. It's not it's not competitive sport. It feels like it's been a game that's cheated its way into it. And City fans may say otherwise. Fair enough. You can justify it, turn it however you want, but the facts are the facts. You look at City, you look at their ground, you look at their match day revenues, you look at everything. It doesn't add up. Yeah. Sponsorship, etc. We all know how that's been organised, but they are what they are. They've spent 500 million in the past 2 windows. That's crazy. Pep has spent, there was a stat about it, 2.2 billion in his total time at City. He's spent more than any other manager in that period, even the ones who are in situ for a long time. So the facts are the facts. He has been given every tool to succeed. When things go wrong, he has been given 80 to 100 million pounds worth of player. They have signed Mark Gahey now for 300,000 a week. That no club will pay now the transfer fee of 20 million and 300,000 a week. I'm not even sure on a free transfer that's a possibility. But 300,000 a week, let's look at it, is in the top bracket of Bukayo Saka, is at Bukayo Saka levels. Now, Mark Gahey is a fabulous player, but he's not that level. But City have the resources to do it. Fair enough to them. And it is what it is. But we all know, again, as I said before, there's an asterisk with anything that they do. But we'll wait to see what happens with the legal cases around them. It's just what it is. And it's a disappointment. But for now, we'll park it. We'll see what happens with them. We go into our game with Inter Milan tomorrow. We hope for a win. We're looking for some rotation because obviously we won on the weekend. But for now, thank you so much, Alex, for joining me. I really appreciate you stepping in at the last minute and really giving us some really great insights into the Nottingham Forest game and the Inter game. Always appreciate it. Can you tell people where they can find you and what you've got? You've got so many things, but let people know where they can find you.
You can find me on the Canon podcast, on the Instant Reactions sometimes, or my very bizarre thumbnails that have become kind of synonymous with me on TCP Live on Thursday. I will sometimes invariably do some odd thumbnails of Yem himself and FK on the latte firm, so check those out. There's sometimes that. But you can find me on my own channel on Forder on Football or on X on Forder on Footy.
And we will do our monthly show at some. We will get back
Yes,
to
we
it.
will.
So,
Now the storms are over and I've got the internet back.
well, not for now. For now, the storms are over. I mean, obviously, the weather system at the moment in the UK is going very odd at the moment. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me, Alex. Really appreciate it as
Mate,
always.
it's always a pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you so much. But for now, we're going to leave it there. We'll catch you on the next one of Red Lines Half Spaces. Bye for now.